city where they gotta play up.
Yeah.
I'm from the city where they gotta play up.
I don't.
Coin flippers trying to pay up.
Hey.
I'm from the city where they gotta play up.
They still gotta play us,
I'm
man.
from the city where they gotta play up. Coin flippers trying to pay up.
Go. Started out with who they? They done got me started. Call Katie, tell him make room for the Lamborghini. I trust 27 to lead us through any battle. We had DK out there press. You seen how we did Seattle? Went down 1-3 and then we hop back on that saddle. Everybody want T, but you can't have him cause we got it. A lethal 9 on the side and he gon' always red dot him. 29 got him on lockdown. This Taylor Britt Island. You know Jamar probably open. That boy 7-11. Who your best cornerback? Cause my receivers gon' shred him. And y'all don't wanna go one-on-one with Lou's playbook. 91 step on that field and quarterbacks look shook. A couple weeks went by and we done stacked us up some wins. Brad Logan still with us, still the turnover twin. Uzi A, man to man, you probably shouldn't throw at him. Orlando Brown came to town, showed us what a bodyguard is. I don't think they want no smoke with us. Forever standing on business, this ain't no joke for us. Money Mackey line it up, that boy forever clutch. Put up whoever you want, it's never slow for us. Ain't nothing changed, 21 still lurking in the cut. 83 reasons why they can't with us. Zach Taylor top dog, it's always win or bust. Hand the ball to Chase Brown, probably won't get touched. Chuck sizzle back deep to receive the punt. Probably gon' run it back, I feel like he the one. Doing my shuffle on him still, I feel like Icky Woods. Whole line protecting Joe like a tiger should. Imagine having Trent Irwin as your fourth string. If VJ Hill hit you, you feel what that force bring. 1, 2, 3, nah, we need 4 rings. This the jungle, you can't come in here and pull strings. Look close, look how DJ read that offense. Send Hubbard and Osai, yeah, we all in. Nick Scott ball hawking overwatching. Dax Hillen interception that look flawless. It's really hard to lose when K. Adams rooting for you. If you need a couple yards, Earth gon' get it for you. We got Tanner Hudson now, Sample still too. Yoshi gon' go get that ball just like a dog do. Already knew they had the players, but this part two. I'm from the city where they gotta. I'm from the city where they gotta play us. It's time to pay up. I'm from the city where they gotta play us. I'm from the city where they gotta. I'm from the city where they gotta play us. It's time to pay up. Who they?
Who dey? What's up, y'all? Welcome to the show on this fun Football Friday. This is Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'm your host, the Iceman, Jeff Trenopole. And as always, I bring you sports from a West Side point of view right here in the great city of Cincinnati, Ohio, home of the back-to-back AFC North champion Cincinnati Bengals. Not to be a favorite, if you found the show, hit that like and subscribe button. Smash that thumbs up. You guys are awesome. I'm up to 2,434 subscribers. As always, I appreciate every single one of you guys. If you're watching on Facebook or Twitter X and you have yet to subscribe to my channel, why not? Please do so. Please go to the YouTube channel Sports with Strawberry Ice. Hit the subscription button, hit the bell for notification. Every time I go live, you'll be notified. Also, exclusive in the YouTube chat crew, we're doing super chats. So I got a couple really cool guests here. I got Mike Bass, who's been a long-time sports writer here. He writes for Cincinnati Enquirer, Cincinnati.com. And you know, we got the Godfather. We got Anthony Cosenza. I have to do that impression every time AC comes on. Anyway, if you got something you want to make sure you ask those guys, or you just want to support the show, give me a super chat. I would greatly appreciate it. And as always, I'm coming to you live from this glorious place down here. It's the Ice Cave. And the Ice Cave is brought to you by Tee Properties. Tee Properties, quality housing for quality people. Check out their website at www.tpropertiesllc.com for all your rental property management needs and your rental needs. And you know it, we hit the jackpot when we drafted Joe Burrow. That's why we call him Jackpot Joey. If you want any of the hats, the flags, the shirts, any of that stuff, go to jackpotjoey9.com. If you want the beer, it's at Brink Brewery. It's delicious and refreshing. Portions of the proceeds for all of this goes to the Joe Burrow Hunger Relief Fund and the Joe Burrow Foundation. And again, I want to get this out there again. Please go out there and support this stuff because really Maddie's literally giving the money to the foundation. I mean, there are some thoughts out there that he's making money on this. He has literally made no money. If you know Maddie, he gives the stuff away. He's donating a lot of the money to the charity from his own dime. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So do me a favor. Go buy some of this stuff so we get some more money for the Joe Burrow Foundation. Anyway, guys, what is up to everybody in the chat? Who's in there first? We got strangers in there first. Paul's in there. Matt's in there. Greg's in there. Mike's in there. And Paul, you're in there again. You are killing the chat already. I appreciate it. All right, guys, let's get to my first guest. The first time he's ever been on the show. He, like I say, is from Cincinnati.com and Cincinnati Enquirer. He's Mike Bass. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, Ice.
Hey, no problem. I love the background. The background is elite. I like that a lot.
Thanks. I was at the game last year, the the Dolphins game. Everybody forgets about Tua.
Yeah, I don't. I was ticked off when they played him. I'm like, he should have been playing in the first place.
It was frightening.
Yes, it was ridiculous. Let's get to the Godfather. Let's get to AC. What's up, AC? What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing well. Although, you gave me such a nice intro, the nice introduction, the Godfather name. I mean, it's always flattering, but I get knocked down a few pegs when I'm next to a legend like Mr. Bass there and seeing all the pictures of you hobnobbing with Corey Dillon, drinking beers, watching football with him. So I'm knocked down quite a few pegs, my friend. But I appreciate you having me on, and Mike, it's good to finally connect with you on here as well.
My pleasure.
Absolutely, Mike. Now, for people who don't know who you are, which if they don't, they've been under a rock. Just do me a favor, give everybody a background of what you've been doing, how you got started, what you're doing now, all the above.
Sure. I was a sports writer and sports editor since around the Mesozoic era. I spent 18 years in Cincinnati with the Old Post and the Inquirer as a sports writer and columnist, editor, did some work at WLW and some other radio stations. Eventually moved on to the Twin Cities, St. Paul. I was the sports editor there for 11 years. Took buyout. Did some work freelancing, taught a little at Northwestern, DePaul, and then worked for Cox Media Group. Did something. I was helping oversee Land of 10, which was a Big Ten website. That folded, and I got trained. It used to be called life coach. I'm a certified professional coach. Apparently nobody with our background has ever done this. And so I chose to specialize in sports fans, including youth sports parents and the people who have to deal with them. And what a shock. Nobody's ever done that before. And so part of what I do is every week I write for the Inquirer. I go on social media and try to help fans in terms of deal with this, because nobody ever helps them. All the things I've ever heard over the years was, how come nobody stands up for us? How come nobody understands us? How come nobody ever helps us? So that's what I'm here to do.
Exactly. Your title last week was how you feeling now, Bengals fans? And I said, great. It's awesome being a Bengals fan now compared to, I'm 48 years old, so I've been a fan since the 70s. I went through the 2 Super Bowl years, went through the whole decade of the 90s, and now the Marvin Lewis years. And this right now, what we got going on is, I've dreamed about this, about the Bengals being this good and Super Bowl contenders every year and stuff. And we're here right now. It's unfreaking believable being a Bengals fan right now.
There has never been a run like this in Bengals history. And I went with the team to the Super Bowl, 88, the 89 Super Bowl. I was there a lot during the lean 90s, which was pretty awful. The David Shula years, and I've never seen anything like this. And for Bengals fans to be able to experience something like this, and a lot of it just revolves around when you get that right quarterback. It's so hard to find that once you get one, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, that guy, Jackpot Joey. Anthony, well, you can speak on this too. The ups and downs of Bengeldom here. You've been a long time fan out there in California.
Yeah, Mike using the word lean for the 90s was, I think, being pretty kind.
We had Corey Dillon, and that was it.
Well, yeah, there's
a couple of guys.
What's weird? You actually, when you look at some of those teams, just a total side note, but when you look at some of those teams, they had a lot of individual talents, but it just, the quarterback wasn't there, the coaching wasn't there in a lot of instances. So you look at it and you go, man, you had Takeo Spikes for a handful of years. You had Willie Anderson through the 90s as well, the last part of the 90s. You had Corey Dillon. You had a number of players where you go, there's individual talents. Carl Pickens, Darnay Scott was a decent number 2.
Yep, Tony McGee for a couple of years.
Yeah, Tony McGee was a good tight end. You had individual pieces. Yeah. I think where it just didn't come together as a team. And then, of course, you had some. I like the ideas, quite honestly, of some of the top picks that they made, especially in that era of football. Big Daddy Dan Wilkinson, Kajana Carter, where you go stop the run the ball, but injuries and all kinds of other things just completely derailed everything there. And then, of course, a couple of bad picks at quarterback in that decade alone. But now we're not talking about that anymore. We're talking about the new Bengals, even beyond the Marvin Lewis up and downs, some ups in that one, but a few downs as well. And now we're rolling.
Roll, man. I like Mike Madden here. He says, surprised any fan from the '90s is still saying terrible years. Yeah,
Well, I'm not saying. I just pretend to be.
I remember watching this show. Nobody thinks I'm sane, so it's okay. I mean, it was rough, and Mike, I tell you that I've told this story a couple of times, but me and my wife's from Florida. We went down to the Super Bowl 2020 when the Buccaneers were there. We didn't go to the game. She's from there. She went down there, hung out with her family. So I'm wearing my nice, like your background, the white Bengal Tiger Joe Burrow jersey. So we're walking around and I'm getting looks going, Bengals? Why are you wearing the Bengals? And I'm like, because we're going to be awesome next year. And I always said this. We're going to win the Super Bowl, which turned out next year we won the Super Bowl. So fast forward a year later, I'm going around Tampa and I'm wearing my Bengals stuff there, and everybody's completely flipped. Like, oh my goodness, I was rooting for you guys. I love the Bengals. I love your fan base. Joe Burrow's awesome. I'm going, wow. That's what it's like being a fan.
Yeah, it's such a difference because it's sort of like you're down in Hoodaysville and nobody knows who you are, and they've been so bad for so long, and they weren't really they didn't have those marquee talents. As AC said, they had some really great players at times over the years, but they just could never put anything together. And people felt like, well, they're just the laughing stock and what's going on here. And, you know, as someone who remembers the Achilles Smith time and David Klingler and all that, and just watching it, but yet the question was, are they going to stay here? How does Mike Brown get away with spending as little money as he is? I mean, it was the inherent right of every Bengals fan to hate Mike Brown. And yet I always thought Mike never got enough credit for some of the Super Bowl things that he did, because his dad was overseeing it, but Mike did a lot of the day-to-day stuff. But to see this catch on the way it has, it's wonderful to see it. And watching how Bengals fans have adapted to it and sort of adopted me, and I've kind of adopted them in the process. It is really a cool experience. I get called all sorts of names. Well, you're just a fair weather fan. You weren't here from the beginning. And I love this whole debate about who's a real fan, because the only definition of fan is what you say it is, because even the gatekeepers and diehards all have different definitions of exactly what it is. So it's just enjoy this run, because this doesn't happen very often. And it hasn't happened in 30 some years here. So it's really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, Mike, I said that starting in 2021. I said, enjoy this, because, you know, I'm like, this might be 1 year. It might be a couple years. I thought it could be a couple years because of the talent we had. But I also thought that with the Carson Palmer and Chad Johnson years, that never turned out that way. But I'm like, just enjoy this. I mean, because the run we are on, yes, we haven't won a Super Bowl yet. It's going to happen. I'm predicting this year we're going to go to Vegas, take Jackpot Joey to Vegas. But just enjoy this, because before you know it, it's going to be gone. You know, because I mean, you guys know this. You both, Mike, I'm sure you have kids. I know AC does. You know, the kids are little. You know, it's like, oh, they're so cute. And this and like, oh, I got to take them here. I got to take them there. And all of a sudden, they're grown, 20 years old, and they're out of the house. I mean, I always tell people, that's why I kind of say that with the Bengals here. Enjoy this time. Enjoy your kids when they're little. Enjoy this time with the Bengals, because before you know it, it's going to be over.
Yeah, there's no question about that this just doesn't happen. And we all, as fans, we look at things in a vacuum. We forget that there's all these other teams out there playing too and trying to get better, and they're adjusting to us, and we're adjusting to them. And it's really, really hard to do it. There's a lot of teams out there that have never been to a Super Bowl. I worked in Minnesota in the Twin Cities for 11 years, and all they were talking about was how many Super Bowls that they lost and how many NFC Championship games that they lost. And they just felt like some kind of combination between Eeyore and Chicken Little. Like, just they're the most passionate, wonderfully passionate people, but they just knew that it wasn't going to happen. I'm in Chicago now, and everybody thinks that the Bears are horrible, and they're always going to be horrible, and they blame ownership. This is just what happens everywhere. And when you get something like this, it's really special. And as every minute you have right now, who would have ever thought that the Bengals could start 1-3, and you don't necessarily panic. You just know that once that guy gets healthy, and once Zach Taylor and everybody else sort of learn to adapt to it, this team could be as good a position as any. Doesn't mean that they're going to win it, but they're certainly put themselves in a great position with it. And suddenly they're back in the conversation of they're moving up in terms of the odds. They're moving up in terms of Joe Burrow and MVP. This is a wonderful time to be a Bengals fan.
Absolutely. AC, what do you got?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with any of that. I mean, I remember there was a kind of a, if you even want to call it a dynasty, there was, the kind of the mini dynasty in the late 80s, early 90s, where they had 3 years or so where they were making playoffs, obviously the Super Bowl. And then there was that 5-year run with Marvin Lewis where they kept making the playoffs, but never advancing through it. So now you've got this run here where, they're going deep in the playoffs the last 2 years. Looks like they're headed towards that way going forward, even with a difficult schedule going forward here. So, yeah, I mean, it's a great time for Bengals fans. It's a great time for those who cover the team, and it's a great time for the players as well. You can tell they're having a heck of a lot of fun playing football with the cast of characters there. And, oh, by the way, Mike touched on, maybe the frugal nature of the franchise through the 90s, early 2000s, really kind of pre-Marvin, and even some of the years during Marvin Lewis where they just did not rely on outside free agents, at least not high-profile ones. And
they're usually over the
now
hill.
all of a sudden, you start doing that, and starting at about 2020, where probably the second year of Zach Taylor's tenure, you start getting these high-profile guys. And, oh, by the way, look at the next level push that they were able to make as a franchise going through a lot of the playoffs because of these high-profile signings, and then drafting well, of course, with high picks and other picks throughout the draft. So they kind of got all things working and all things firing on all cylinders as an organization right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just I'll put that all to the Blackburn girls, the granddaughters. I mean, I don't know if we put all of it on them, but Mike's even said that. Like, we got the Ring of Honor. We got all this new stuff that Mike has behind his background there. The whiteout game. We just did the stripe game. There's so many different things that they're doing now to make the fan engagement more fun and game day experience more fun. And that's stuff that they didn't do for, forever. We never did anything like that. And for them to do it now, it makes it so much more, even more fun. And like I said, I give a lot of credit to Katie and her daughters, because it seemed like they brought the granddaughters back. Things started changing. Mike even said, your granddaughters, Mike Brown said it, not Mike Bass. Mike Brown even said that, your granddaughters speak, he kind of pulls at your heartstrings. So it seemed like he softened his cold heart, or however you want to look at it, to do these things for the fans and for the Bengals. Because I know Mike, I don't think Mike was trying to be mean. It just, Paul didn't do that. Paul was always a team-oriented guy, and it's about the team and not individuals. And I think Mike was kind of stuck in that too. That kind of makes sense what I'm saying there, Mike?
What's funny is when the Bengals started Bengals.com, I don't know that any other team was doing that. That was
the first.
Really poor. They hired Butch to do that. I don't know that anybody else was, and all of us were sitting there thinking, it's just going to be a house organ and nobody's going to read it. Nobody's going to take it seriously. But, they kind of saw the way they started seeing things maybe before some others did. So it's pretty shrewd on his part and their part as an organization to be doing that. And yeah, Mike learned under Paul. Mike had everybody forgets Mike had a football back. Mike
was a quarterback.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so he knew football. And Mike is a fascinating, if you ever spend any time with him, he's actually very funny. He really cares a lot about the team. He's not, everybody sees the Grinch over there, or Scrooge counting up his money. He really does care about it. Don't necessarily agree with everything he does, and he didn't agree with everything I did, and that's okay. But he would always talk to you. He's always, had a really interesting perspective on things. One of the things I always felt was fascinating, that he had developed kind of a friendship with Lee Steinberg, the famous agent in Lee's earlier days. And Lee was like I think he was the class president at Cal Berkeley during the more radical days. And Mike is as conservative as you can get. But they liked having conversations about politics. And so, they go head to head sometimes on that. They go head to head with draft picks. But Mike likes talking about things other than just football. He's a very bright guy.
Yeah, it sounds. I personally would love to have a conversation with him sometimes. So, Mike, if you're hooked that up, I'm sure being. I think AC. I think you actually talked to Mike Brown, AC.
I have talked to Mike Brown. I've had Lee Steinberg on my show, and we've talked about his relationship with Mike Brown. And there is a lot of really cool history and dynamics between those two, as Mike just mentioned. Really, really needed. Obviously, Lee Steinberg, especially in the 90s, and now kind of again now, he was the agent. He was the guy that always had the high picks. Obviously, Jerry Maguire was kind of loosely based around his life and the whole thing. And so in our conversations with him, he and Lee Steinberg, kind of full circle deal, he's now teaching MBA classes at my alma mater down here in Southern California part-time. So it's really, it's a really cool deal. But going back to Mike Brown, I've only talked to him a couple of times, but he is incredibly affable. He is the most, for a guy who owns $1 billion product. He is just the most approachable kind of guy. I think if I can just, say this a little bit, I think what may or may not rub people the right or wrong way with him is he and his father were always kind of it's our way or no, or the highway. And even some of their best players, you can go back to Lamar Parrish and Bill Bergey and all these guys that they had way back when. And when it came time to put those players maybe perceived to be putting themselves above the team, it was like, okay, bye. So it was very team oriented. It was very, we're running this thing a certain way. And that's how it was. I think Mike Brown did that for a very long time. And I think he got the right people finally kind of in his ear over the last couple of years, probably Zach Taylor, his coaching staff and brain trust, Duke Tobin. And then, of course, his granddaughters who come in with this innovative approach as well, saying we need to kind of wrap our arms more around our current players, our former players, our fans and everything, and all of these initiatives that they've been putting out. And he's said he's greenlit everything, really. Yeah. Maybe he's taken a more passive stance, but he's putting the green light on all these things too. So while we give a lot of credit to a lot of different people in that front office, I think he deserves credit too for saying, yeah, let's do this and run with it. We haven't done it before. Let's modernize things.
Yeah, despite what everybody thinks of how much his granddaughters have influence on it, Mike's got the final say. If Mike doesn't want to do something, it's still his team.
Right.
I still believe that he's like, we're not doing that, So I still believe that. And the cool thing about this team as well is all these guys, yeah, they're individuals, but they are team oriented, and they're all really likable guys. There's not one guy on this team that you don't like. They're all just great dudes. They seem like guys you usually go out and have a beer with, or if you got a daughter, you want your daughter to go hang out with them or whatever. That's what makes this team so fun and so lovable. I think just not for Bengals fans, but like I said, all the Tampa people are like, oh, we love you. I think that's rubbing off on the national narrative too, more than they used to be. We're not the Bengals anymore. We're the Bengals.
I think there's a cool factor going on right now.
With
Burrow and Chase that people love. It's like, if you talk to fans of other teams, they might disagree with you on some about the Bengals, but it seemed to be a very likable group. They haven't had some of the issues, but they've been winning, which also helps. One of the things to remember here, there's a real key in the NFL. If you can win while a quarterback's on his rookie contract, you can pay to have guys around him. You can have higher level. The real hard part is, and Joe Burrow, Jackpot Joey, as you call him, if I remember, I think in his contract, it doesn't, the bigger money doesn't kick in until later, so they can do it.
Right.
But that's really hard once you start. Look what's happening with Kansas City a little bit. As great as Mahomes is, some of the pieces around him are harder to keep. And are the Bengals going to be able to keep? I think Mike has said, be careful once we have to pay that quarterback contract, and we're going to have to do it because it's the right thing. It's going to be really hard. So drafting is going to be so huge because you just can't keep all those guys because of the cap. You're not allowed to do it. So which players do you give money to and which don't you give money to? It's really a difficult proposition now.
Yeah, we're going to be running into that. We talk about this on the show here a lot. This next year is with Tee Higgins, his contract. They could franchise tag him, and Jonah Williams, who went from the doghouse to everybody loves Jonah Williams now at right tackle, and he's another one that is potential free agent. So, and they're both going to get paid a lot of money. So that's the thing. It's like I keep telling Bengals fans, it's like we can't keep everybody. we just can't. But the good thing is, it seems like the Bengals are doing a good job of drafting guys to replace him. Just like we let Jesse Bates go, we replaced him with Dax Hill. So I mean, Jesse Bates still. I'm not saying Dax Hill is better than Jesse Bates, but it's still a good replacement, and maybe Dax Hill eventually be as good as Jesse. But that's what I think the Bengals have got like a better handle on too. Is that aspect of it, Mike? Is when the Marvin Lewis era run ran out. You know, we let Whitworth go, we let Zettler go, we let Sanu go, and we didn't have anybody behind them. You know. So it seems like now it seems like we're a little bit more prepared for it. What do you think about that, AC? Do they seem more prepared for these guys to move on?
Yeah, and I still think there's a little bit of a, I don't know what you want to call it, a pride or a little bit of an overconfidence in some of the way that they've drafted, particularly in offensive linemen and how they develop or don't develop them. But I think they were uber overconfident because of the way they drafted under Marvin Lewis. And then what they didn't do is they weren't supplementing with other outside free agent talent. So it's one thing if you lose your internal guys that are important, and then you don't, and then you're able to supplement other areas of your team with outside free agents that are contributors and talented guys. It's another if you are losing guys and not supplementing that with free agents. And then, oh, by the way, maybe the occasional whiff on big picks in the draft too. So I think that's what kind of plagued that, Marvin Lewis, right. 16, 17, 18, those last final years there, kind of a combination of all that kind of stuff. But yeah. And, just one other thought on Mike Brown himself too. I mean, I said it was kind of their way or the highway, but I think there's a lot of examples too of Mike Brown and his father being incredibly loyal to a lot of players, both that did deserve it and maybe didn't, that were on numerous chances with the team. I mean, you can go back to a lot of different players. I won't name names, but there are a lot of different players. You can go to the Hard Knock series. You can go well before that and look at a litany of players that maybe did not deserve multiple chances with this team, but they got them. And a lot of them did end up paying off for not only themselves and their careers, but also for the team. So, again, that coin with Mike Brown flips both ways. There's a hard line stance in a lot of ways, but there's also this kind of softy guy that endears himself to a lot of players.
And coaches too. I mean, you brought up a great point. Look at all the coaches who never would have lasted as long because Mike felt this loyalty to them. And how many fans out there were saying, come on, we need to fire. We need to get somebody different in there. And he just wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, Zach Taylor's got the safest job in the NFL. I would tell you that. But shout out to Mike for the professionalism there. He's got the headset on now. He's got the mic on. Looks like a regular podcaster now.
There was some outside noise here. I want to make sure that it wasn't getting in the way.
That's awesome. It's almost 6:00. You got to get going, Mike, or you want to hang out for a little bit more?
A little bit more. I can stay.
All right, so let's get into this week's game against the Texans, and it's come out that Tee Higgins is definitely out. Sam Hubbard is out. Those are big losses, obviously. But I'm not trying to run down the Texans, and CJ Stroud has had a great game. I would rather them be out this game and be ready for the Ravens game. Now, we don't know about Chase yet. There's a possibility he might be out too. Are you guys, just say all three of them are out there, who on this team steps up? Is this more pressure on Burrow? Does it mean Yoshivas steps up, Irvin steps up, TB? Like, what's your thoughts on that? I'll go with AC. I'll let you go first on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually, I think Yoshi is one guy that could. I think Trenton Irwin would probably have a higher profile role. I said this on my show last night that I thought this might be, especially if Tee Higgins is out, and he was since ruled out today, Friday. I think this might be a possible situation because of the height, the catch radius, etc. This might be a Tanner Hudson game, in a game where you kind of use those inside, safer, shorter throws. Let him use his height and his mismatch size against the Texans. So I on offense, I think that's the guy. And then on defense, you're looking, Cam Sample. Miles Murphy had a pretty nice game
He's
last
more
week
snaps
as well.
He's starting to get more plays now.
Yeah, and then mysteriously, I don't really understand the thing with Joseph Osai because we thought he would be, the next kind of guy in there. But Cam Samples had some nice moments this year. Miles Murphy had a good game, so it's going to be on them to generate some more pressure there. Hubbard's a big loss. It's just a big loss. There's no way around it. So I think if Joe's going to be Joe and play the way that he has, I think you look maybe Tanner Hudson's way. I think Trenton Irwin. You saw that in the Cardinals game when Tee Higgins was out in that one. So those are some of the guys to look at in this one. But I've said this, I think, before on your show, when last time I was on, that I do not like where this Texans game is positioned on this schedule. But after that Bills game and on a short week going on the road to the Ravens, which the Bengals really want and need that one. And then, of course, now you've got a litany of injuries that the Bengals are dealing with. The Texans have a ton also, though.
Yes,
if you look at their injury report, it's like 22
it's
players.
the middle of football season.
It's a joke.
Yeah. Good, Mike. What you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think what people are forgetting here is the schedule keeps expanding. It's 17 games now, keeping everybody healthy for 17 games, and the playoffs are longer. At some point this season, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to 18 games. Depth is such a huge part of being a great NFL team right now, and it's really, really hard. I think you're going to have to see the running game really have to step up. It was good to see the tight ends start to do things. The defense, I think what you may have seen during this team's really rough start was the rest of the team start to come together. And I think that happened a little bit last year too, is that it really puts the onus on everybody else that this just can't be this. This is a fascinating matchup because for all they talk about how bad Ohio State quarterbacks are, you have the two who have disproven that. Everybody forgets that Joe Burrow went to Ohio State first. It just didn't get the number one job there. And now Stroud is doing just incredible things there. This could be a absolutely fascinating matchup that at the beginning of the season you thought, well, this is one of the gimme games that's on the schedule. This is not a gimme game.
No, it's not.
They got to be really, really careful here. They got to keep Burrow upright, and this may not be this. This could be anything from a shootout to a really, really close game. It's a fascinating game to watch. I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I was just about to say, as a stranger put it up there, he said, Joe said he went to Ohio State, but he played football at LSU. That's what.
Absolutely.
And I'll say this, Urban Meyer's the only one that could shut Joe Burrow down because he didn't freaking play him. So, because I wonder how much he regrets that. But anyway, but yeah, but the good thing is our offensive line is healthy, and this is the best offensive line that Joe Burrow has had. They are playing at a very, very high level to almost elite level. They're getting there. They can improve more. And that to me is the difference in this game. Where I agree with what Mike said. I would love to see Mixon get his first 100-yard game this year. He's gotten close, got 87 yards or whatever. But this is one of those games where we need to get out, start fast, and just grind it out, I think. If Chase doesn't play, because Chase, if he doesn't feel it, if he feels like I'll be better if I sit out a week, Chase will sit out. And so that's where it is iffy that Chase may or may not play. And if that does, that's even a bigger onus on Joe Mixon and Joe Burrow. This is where I really do think this could be a game. What was it? The Carolina game, was that the one last year, AC, where he had 5 touchdowns? I think it was Carolina, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Carolina, and then they also throttled the Falcons last year too. Yeah.
So this could be, and we're going to have one or two of those games with Mixon. This could be one of those games, and I think it needs to be because, like I said, we are injured, but luckily it doesn't sound like they're too bad. And the other thing, don't know if you heard this yet or not. Do you know if Charlie Jones is going to be activated? Do either one of you found that out yet?
Don't know.
Yeah, I don't think they've made that announcement yet. At least not that I've seen.
So yeah, this could be.
He's been out there practicing. He's been cleared to practice and all that stuff. But yeah,
but it is a big game for Mixon. That's why I think. I mean, Tim here says 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, which would sign me up for that. That would be awesome. But that's just something I think that has to happen. And like you said, the depth of this team, it's going to be tested. And I think this is one of those games that it's going to be tested because of it is a trap game. We don't have T. We don't have Sam. We might not have Jamar. It is one of those teams but I think this team does a really good job. And I give credit to Zach Taylor about keeping this team focused at, one game at a time. They know the Ravens are there, but I really don't see them looking ahead. And that's one thing I think that Bengals teams in the past tended to do too much. They look, ahead to the next week and not focus on the game ahead of them. Do you find that that with this Bengals team that they're very focused on the game in front of them?
Is that me or AC?
Yeah, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, this team seems to be so much right now, today, because remember, 0-2, 1-3, they were just trying to survive, to try to figure out what's going wrong here all the way around, and they figured out ways to do it. And so it's easy at 5-3 to say, we're in good shape, but look where they came from. I think last year when they were around this time, when they got off to a slow start, and everybody, I think the fan base seemed so angry. They were shocked. They were angry at the odds makers. They were angry at the so-called experts about it. And there's just this chip on people's shoulders. I think this year it was like, okay, yeah, this is bad, but if we could just get Burrow healthy, if we could just hang in there long enough to get Burrow healthy. And the bye happened at the perfect time, and then you start to see it. San Francisco, a little bit down at that moment. It's okay. And what they did with Buffalo is now you start to see what it is. So I don't know that they could have looked past anybody during the first half of this season, because they were just kind of trying to get back into things. And now I'm not out there every day, and again, one of these things mentally and psychologically and emotionally, everybody's different. So could one person be looking ahead? Could others? That's really the test of the coaching staff, to try to keep everybody focused. You hear them say it, and it's cliche and everybody says it, but they are really consistent about one game at a time. We're 1-0. We stack games. We stack practices. Joe Burrow is terrific. I talked to a couple of years ago, the person he took leadership classes with at LSU on getting his master's. And she said, it's just amazing listening to the things that he says that we teach about it. Is you always take responsibility when something goes wrong. You always, pass credit when something goes right. He's very careful. He never really says too much. He just says, very short. He kind of does this a lot during interviews. Sometimes he looks a little uncomfortable, but he's really, really good at keeping that message going. Now, what's happening behind the scenes, we don't know, but they really seem to be a very good job of keeping that focus in there. Last year at the end, when everything happened with Damar Hamlin game and then the convoluted playoff thing, and I think everybody from players to fans kind of got out of their funk from that and focused on anger, which can actually help when you're stuck in that shock and feeling just mortified by what happened. And they use that to do that there. And suddenly they weren't the lovable Bengals anymore, and the fans were kind of getting on other people's nerves. I think this is a different team. I think this is a team that's much more confident, but that knows what it can do and isn't trying to do, I hate to say too much or too little, but they're doing what they can right now, and they're starting to break out.
Exactly. What do you think about the focus of this team, AC? Is it so? It's to me, it's something that really bonds this team together. I think it has a lot to do with Zach Taylor and Joe Burrow. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you heard me say I didn't like where this game was positioned on the schedule for a variety of reasons, but I think, you saw how this show started off and what we talked about with the Bengals, and then I just have Bengals PTSD because I've seen, I've seen and experienced a lot. So I do think that the leadership on this team, the talent on this team, is probably the most well-equipped outside of maybe, that 88 Super Bowl team, maybe a Ken Anderson team as well, that is most well-equipped to not have a trap game or overlook an opponent or something like that. I think that they are well-equipped for that. But that being said, Ice, it's like not only are they missing, potentially a handful of really key people in this game, you do have a big game coming up here. And then, this game with the Texans kind of pits a lot of tug of wars, right? It's like either strength versus strength or weakness versus strength. And it's a lot of, the Bengals are really good at creating interceptions, second in the league in interceptions netted this year. CJ Stroud has thrown 1, right?
About third 2.
The Bengals rushing yards as a team, I think they're last in the NFL. The Texans run defense is pretty good, right? And then you've got Trey Hendrickson, one of the better pass rushers in the NFL, going up against Laramie Tunsil, strength against strength. So there's all these dynamics to this game where you go, man, which way is that rope going to go over the line on the tug of war on all these different facets that present themselves in this one?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I bring up something really quickly? The leadership is such a great question, and listening to all the stories that people talk about Joe Burrow and the things he does for his teammates is such a huge thing. I was really fortunate. I spent a lot of time around the Boomer Esiason Bengals. I've never seen a better, in all the years I covered sports, I don't know that I ever saw a better leader than Boomer was, because everybody forgot that the year before was when the strike happened, and that team just divided. But they all saw that here was Boomer, this high profile, high money. He just signed a
He was the highest paid player in the NFL at that time, if I remember right.
He might have been. He certainly was on the Bengals. And he was the one helping out there, organizing them, making sure, saying things to players behind the scenes, saying, hey, if you need money, come to me first. If that's the only reason you're crossing, I'll help you out until you get there. And that, going into that next season, they were so adamant about, we are not going to fracture. No matter what happened, we are not going to fracture. And Boomer led that. You walked into a locker room and you just see that he had that presence about him. And if Joe brings that, I mean, Joe is a different personality than Boomer was, clearly. But, just from a distance, if you've got that leadership, that every coach can only do so much. You got to have that leadership in the locker room.
Exactly. And I think a lot of it too is, it seems to me that Zach and Joe are a lot alike, as far as, like, you're just talking about deflecting, when people give them praise, deflecting it on them, taking the criticism on them. I see that a lot with Zach Taylor. What's your thoughts on Zach Taylor as how he is as a coach and a leader of a football team?
Me or AC?
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, Mike. You, Mike.
He says all the right things. I mean, that's what they're saying. He seems a little surprised when people were asking him about, when Joe going to play. There was one press conference I was watching that. So that's a weird question. It's like everybody wants. This is really hard, and the pressure is really hard. It's easy for it to get you. It's easy to turn on the people who are, asking the questions, and they've been in such a great position all this way through that he hasn't really had to face that much, other than people still furious that they get off to a slow start the last couple of years. Although they kind of forget that just about every team does this now.
Well, your preseason is basically the first month of the season now, because they don't play. Right. Nobody plays in the preseason
because the season's getting so long that the Bengals are Exhibit A, that you can start slowly and still do fine. It's how you finish that, because the season is getting longer and because there are more teams in the playoffs, that you can get through that. So you have to be a little bit patient for it. If you start turning on each other, that's when you lose the team. And how many times have we seen that over the years where, you start losing the locker room and it gets nasty out there.
That's more important, I think, for a head coach, of winning the locker room and having those guys trust you. I mean, let's just go with the Las Vegas Raiders. They just fired their coach and they won one game, and the players are in there smoking cigars and partying like they won the Super Bowl because they hated the guy that they were playing for so much. I mean, to me, sometimes I think that's the most important thing. Yes, you got to be able to coach football and everything, but you can be the greatest coach, but if that locker room doesn't trust you and they think you're an asshole or whatever, they're not going to want to go play for you. What do you think, Mike?
It's funny. There's sort of this cyclical thing where you have a player's coach and then you have a disciplinarian, player's coach and discipline, especially in baseball. That would go a lot back and forth with that. Sometimes the guys who, Bill Belichick is not everybody's buddy, but he's a really good coach. Not quite as good without Tom Brady, but, he's still a really good coach.
Yeah.
there are different personalities. Yeah, you have to keep that locker room. You have to keep, but it's not just the locker room. You have to keep everybody focused. You have to have the right assistant coaches. You have to have the right players. You've got to be able to react well if you're coming up to fourth down. What do? Do you just fold? Do you get carried away with it? There's a lot of things about being a coach and all the things that we never see that go on behind the scenes. I was really fortunate to spend a year with Bob Huggins when I worked on his book with him, where I could sit on the bench and you watch all the things. And I saw more than I ever did. I thought I knew the team and the coach pretty well. There's all sorts of things you never understand what's going on behind the scenes. People with personal things, people with all sorts of, it's just the real world and life with it. And so to be a head coach is really, really challenging to keep them all together. And winning cures a lot of things, but look around the NFL, how many times a team will win if the wide receiver doesn't get enough catches, he's still ticked off about it.
Right.
When Chase does it, it seems almost like he's having fun with it as opposed to getting ticked off and throwing his helmet.
Mm-hmm. What do you think there, AC?
Yeah, there's so many elements to, running any real high-level college or professional sports organization, from a management perspective or a head coaching perspective. But, you guys both touched on a lot of the stuff. The accountability factor, I think when the coach and your quarterback are saying we when things are going well and I when things aren't going well, that resonates in a locker room, right? I think when you are wooing outside free agents, woo, and you have a solid, you have a solid free agent, you have a solid strategy and a roadmap to success in place that these guys can buy in, that resonates with players. And then if you can kind of connect with these players, and I think, Marvin Lewis in his first early years, he was a great connector. Yes. When he was in his early 50s, mid 50s, he was a little younger. He was a great connector with a lot of the personalities on that football team. And he was a guy that, new guy came in. He had the Super Bowl ring. Remember the billboard where they had him flashing the Super Bowl ring when he first came to town? All of that kind of bore weight. And guys were like, man, he's coming in, he's making changes, that sort of thing. Zach Taylor did it a little different way, but he's younger than me and he's in there connecting well with a lot of these guys. And, I think there's just so many layers and levels and things that a coach needs to do in order to win a locker room. Zach seems to have had it. And then of course, just when you win the big games, when you have shown as a coach and as a quarterback, you've shown your team, we can win these big games. We can win the playoff games. We can win the big division games, the primetime games. That resonates. That's what Zach and Joe have been able to do. Marvin and Andy were not able to do it. And you felt, I know you guys know, you felt it. The big
you were nervous. I was nervous.
When was the other shoe dropping?
Yes.
When was the other shoe going to drop?
Yeah,
that's what you felt.
You're nervous as a fan going into this game. So like, all right, we're winning. Okay. What's going to mess up
on Monday night?
I know. Oh my God! Like, what's gonna mess up there? It's like, oh my goodness.
How about the playoff game where everybody was waiting for that other shoe to drop, and it didn't, and just the emotional release, that people crying, and it was just so. Because 30 some years without a playoff win, you expect that it's going to happen, and you're still heartbroken. But to have that happen, it's just changed. And you were talking before about I and we. This is what happens with fans too, is when you have that connection, that intimate, and it's really true. And they've done all sorts of studies about this too. When you're winning, it tends to be more we. You have this more of a connection to it. When it's losing, it's they. And so how many more people do you hear now saying we? And it's such a wonderful thing for the town and the world. I'm sure you guys too get people from all over the world saying, what I found here. And now people are actually wearing Bengals stuff, and people don't look at me funny when I'm wearing, as you said, something with Bengals on it. Or I forget, one guy went and hiked Kilimanjaro and had I think it was Kilimanjaro, and he had the the Burrow shirt on, and I went on a cruise and I had a Bengals hat on, and people were saying "Who Dey," just going through that. It's just a change of it. We feel like we're part of. It's a part of our identity. You know, as long as we don't lose our self-esteem in the whole part, and that's part of what I try to help people with is, you know, when it becomes, you know, they win, we win, I win, they lose, I lose, I'm a loser, and that's what people do, and that's when they completely lose context with it, and it's a fine line there, but it's just such a joy. There seems to be more of a quiet confidence. Do you guys sense that too? That you don't?
Absolutely.
It's not quite the same as it was last year.
Yeah,
it's more. It feels more, maybe a little more business-like. Maybe just the way the last year ended, where they were, making jabs and and it kind of. I mean, I don't want to say it blew up in their face because they were real close to making the Super Bowl again. But I mean, that when you don't win and you make those comments, that's going to be coming back at you, and the mayor's making these things, and all of that's going to come back, and you're going to hear about it. So I think maybe this year it's more like, hey, we've got a really, really good team. Let's just maybe keep that a little. We'll still play our confident brand, but maybe let's keep that one a little more buttoned up.
Right.
And
we're here. It's like there's this belief that they respect us. Nobody's dissing anybody. Nobody's saying whether it's just an aberration. They're for real, and everybody respects them, and they're part of it. And the Bengals and Bengaland and Bengaldom have all joined the NFL and the elite. And it is, we kind of start out, there has never been a better time to be a Bengals fan or a Bengal or a player. I think this is just a magical time in the team's history.
Yeah, it is. And one thing's cool is you were talking about the guy who wore the Bengals jersey up Kilimanjaro. We have Bengals fans all over the world now. I mean, I'll have people from Ireland and Wales and all that stuff reach out to me. Like the Bengal UK group, they're heading back home tomorrow. They were here this past weekend. There was 32, I think, Bengal fans from the Great Britain area and Wales, and
awesome.
They stay up till to watch the game last week on Sunday. They had to stay up to like 1:20 in the morning for the game to start, to watch the game. So that's the thing of how big this has gotten, that Bengal Nation, Who Dey Nation is everywhere, and it's fun to be a part of it. That's kind of, I think, what this whole discussion we had here, how much fun it is, how things have changed, and I'm damn glad to be a part of it. I'll tell you that, because it is so much more fun being a Bengals fan now than it was, for most of my life. I'll put it that way. I'm 48 years old, and it was rough. It was rough being a Bengals fan. There's times I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do it anymore. But I still came back, and that's my team. That's kind of what you do. You grow up with the team, you live, you die with them, and that's where I've been with them for my whole life. And this is the coolest time. And when I like speaking things to existence, when we win the Super Bowl here in Vegas, it's going to be a party, and I cannot freaking wait. It's going to be so much fun. Mike, you've been on for almost an hour. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a joy. And AC, it was nice talking to you finally.
You too. Thanks for what you do.
Oh, thanks.
Appreciate
you too.
it.
You guys do great work. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
I can get you back on again, because I haven't got to ask you about interviews or any of that stuff. I got a whole bunch of other stuff I can ask you. But tell everybody where they can follow you at and where to get your articles at. And
sure. Cincinnati.com every week, and also in the Inquirer. And I do a lot on, I keep wanting to call it Twitter. It's now X. It's Sports Fan Coach.
I call it Twitter X.
Yeah, or X Twitter.
Yeah.
Usually the day after the game, I try to ask them questions and kind of have a session of sorts with fans about what they're going through, especially after that Bills Hamlin game. And people were amazing with the stuff that they were dealing with that the NFL was ignoring. And we just talk about what's going on and how they're dealing with things. And it's just been a fascinating experience. So thank you for having me on. I'm happy to come again. Guys, keep up the great work.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you, man.
Take care. Who Dey.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's his role and what he's currently doing, or one of the many things he does. What he was just talking about. I said it feels like he's one of the, I don't want to say one of the few, but he's very good about, as a guy who covers the team, he's very good about like fan engagement,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
he's just he reaches out to a lot of different people, which I think is very, very cool.
Right. Exactly. I would love to pick his brain on, the Bengals in the 80s. And I wish I wish I would have asked what years he covered them. I can't remember that, but I do remember him covering like who's his best favorite player, or not favorite player, but most interesting guy he covered, something like that. Those are all the things I think are cool to ask guys who have covered the team for a while. But yeah, you asked about Corey Dillon. I had a great weekend with him. That was so much fun.
That's awesome.
I got to tell you two quick stories. All right, so we rolled down to Holy Grail, and I thought they were doing a pregame show down there. I didn't know who was going to be on, so I wanted to hurry up and get Corey in there, and just whoever was up there, I was going to talk to him. Well, it happened to be James Rapine, or from Locked On Bengals. He was up there, and I said, "Hey," I said, "James, did you know Corey Dillon's in town?" He goes, "No, I didn't." I said, "You want to talk to him?" He was right over my shoulder. Butch Hobson, who covered Corey. This was the coolest thing ever. His jaw dropped. I swear. He was going to start crying. He was so happy to see Corey. He ran down and gave him a big hug. And that stuff to me, that's what's so cool is that he covered him and how happy he was to see him. I mean, Butch Hobson came out to the field, knelt down, took his hat off to Corey Dillon and everything. Those are some of the things this weekend that I will never forget. It was so cool. Those are guys that covered Corey every day, day in and day out for almost his whole career here to say. That was really cool to watch this weekend. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean that Butch. I don't know if you remember Mark Canute from the Cincinnati Enquirer, Doherty, Mike Bass, who you just had on. I mean, these are some of the guys that we relied on. So I mean, we still do. I mean, those were like the sources really for Bengals news in a lot during the 90s and whatnot. So for me, that was a treat that I was. I was on the same show as Mike Bass. He's a great guy, and that's a really cool story. I hope I think this is one of. I mean, when was the last time Corey was out there for the 50th?
50th. That was the last time. Yeah, and
so that's 2018. Yeah. Right.
He said he flew in and flew out. So we took him around the banks and everything. He never saw the city. He would just basically flew in. The Bengals flew him in and flew him out. So we took him all around the banks, Holy Grail. We took him up to the rooftop on top of the AC, the hotel there. He got to look at everything. He was just like, this place has totally changed. So he really got to see the city this time.
Well, right? I hope he felt embraced, and I hope he felt just a different energy than what he maybe left with, because he is one of their best players. I still think he's got a Hall of Fame resume.
Dude.
I think Ring of Honor's a shoe-in. That's not even a question.
That's happening next year.
He's a top statistically in the two major categories. He's rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. He's top 20 in each. And he is one of, if not the only in both categories, players who are not who is not currently in the Hall of Fame. That are in the top 20. And then he's, by the way, got a career average of over 4 point yards per carry. And, by the way, has a Super Bowl ring. So it's kind of like, well, what are we doing here?
Right. What are we waiting on?
Let's not overthink this thing. Yeah. And I see that he's on a short list, or a somewhat short list, of candidates for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And, there's some other good names on there, but I mean, Warwick Dunn was on there.
But look at the numbers. His numbers are better than all the guys that are on there with him. It's not even close.
Better and on worse teams.
Yes.
Yeah, better while he was on worse teams. Yeah.
I mean, he was not only the best running back in Bengals history. I'll argue he's the best running back in Patriots history. He's their single season leading rusher. I mean, who does that? And he won a Super Bowl with him. I mean, he's just good. I say this all the time. He is the best running back in Bengals history. No offense to James Brooks or Joe Mixon or any of these guys. People say that Corey was on bad teams. That's why he's not on. He still produced at a Hall of Fame level with these bad teams. That's where I'm like, that, in my opinion, should mean more.
Yeah. And again, when you look at the talent kind of scattered on some of those teams, you had star players: Willie Anderson, Takeo Spikes, Corey Dillon, Carl Pickens, Jeff Blake, Darnay Scott. And I mean, I know a lot of people think Dan Wilkinson was a bust, but he put up some okay stats at certain times, and it just never coalesced. The team just never came together fully, and or when they had a decent year, they couldn't string it. They couldn't get the consistency to the next year.
Right.
So I mean, a shame in a lot of ways, but I hope he gets the credit that he is due and he is seeking, because he's seeking it because it's due.
Yeah.
So I mean, Yeah.
I mean, honestly, the thing is that I think people get twisted with Corey now that I've really got to know him on a personal level. He is very humble. I mean, he is very, very humble. He's like, I'm just Corey. AC, he was nervous coming back. He didn't think people would like him here in Cincinnati of the way
That's
he
a
left
shame.
and everything. Yeah, but he said, Jeff, this completely changed my mind. This has been an eye-opening experience. And like I said, I keep telling Who Dey Nation, thank you for doing that, because he got so many hugs and so many, I love Corey Dillon. There was not one person that wasn't excited to see him. And that changed his perspective of his, I won't say his time here, but of how he thinks people think about him. And say what you want, people want to be liked. I mean, people want to be liked and want to be respected for what they did. And Corey, I think, got that love that he didn't feel or didn't think he had, here in Cincinnati. So that's the part that I really loved about this weekend, watching his face, how he was smiling the whole time, and just the end of the night when I'm leaving to go home with Sunday night, he told me, he goes, I will never forget this weekend. So that awesome. To me right there is just awesome. And that made the whole freaking weekend worth it. It was such an awesome time.
Yeah. And, I know a lot of people maybe, between the shoulder pads in the stands, or, the burger flipping comment, or, maybe the more recent ones before not getting in the Ring of Honor, that sort of thing. I know it may have rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but Corey Dillon has always been a guy, and I don't want to speak for him, because you know him much better than I do, but I perceive him to always be a guy that has had this he's a high achiever, and he's always had a chip on his shoulder. And he entered the league with a chip on his shoulder because he was a second-round pick and shouldn't have been.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
And then he was on a team that just didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't get the accolades. And his team not only didn't do what he wanted them to do, but he didn't get the accolades given the stats that he put up on poor teams. And he's just a guy that's a passionate guy. And maybe it didn't always come out the way everybody wanted it to, but I think we all understand. Probably Pickens was the same way to a degree as well. It came out, and it's passion about wanting to do well and wanting to get the respect that they have earned. And you look back, I said I don't want to keep belaboring. I know you like to keep it about an hour, so I don't mean to keep yammering.
Keep going.
I've said this a couple times when talking about Corey Dillon. When you look back at the old AFC Central and the running backs in that division, it was unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're talking Bettis,
Yep.
you're talking Dillon,
Yep.
you're talking Fred Taylor,
Mm-hmm.
you're talking Eddie George, and then later Jamal Lewis.
Yep.
I mean, you are talking an insane group of running backs, and all of them. I mean, name all those guys. Taylor was the smallest of the bunch, and he wasn't a small dude.
Mm-mm.
All of those guys would come after you. I
Yep.
mean, it was you're eating shoulder pads for lunch, and you're doing it about 30 times a game.
Yeah.
When you go against those guys, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the old school football, which I don't know do you think we'll ever see those type of running backs? I mean, I think Derrick Henry's the last of them. I mean, I hope not, because I missed that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an the NFL kind of evolves, right? It was always for in the 80s, it was the big, tall, still pocket passers,
Right.
And then kind of like later in the 90s and 2000s, you kind of had this, these running guys who can run a lot with McNabb and Vic and a myriad of others, that were doing that. And then it kind of evolved back to the Tom Brady, Carson Palmer, Peyton Manning, statuesque guys in the pocket again. And now you've got guys that are big guys, but can move a little bit as quarterbacks, right? So You've got your Burrow, who's 6'3", 6'4", and can move. Yep. You have to be able to navigate the pocket. You have to be able to do things as a quarterback and not just sit back there and take sacks, because that's defensive linemen and linebackers are too athletic now. So you can't do that. So the quarterback position has evolved. The running back position has evolved a little bit too, where you get kind of these hybrid players and stuff. Right. But I almost wonder if that's going to revert back at some point too, to maybe some of these bigger kind of, I don't want to call them plotting, but maybe the bigger guys that just will get you the 1,300 yards, 4 yards a carry, 10 touchdowns a year, where it's not incredibly flashy, but it's more Rudy Johnson-esque a little bit.
Yeah, Augie's got a good point here. So the body type Prototype of a right is more Bijan Robinson, which that and he's going to be a legit. I mean, he is a legit running back. I got him on my fantasy, so I want him to get more points. But that's he's really the first running back in a while that I mean, I was like, if he was there, I wanted the Bengals to draft him. Because I mean, I think he's going to be elite. So I think there's still going to be guys. I still don't know if there's going to be as many. I think it's going to be more like Christian McCaffrey. Guys like that, because you see Mixon, he's catching more passes out of the backfield and stuff than he did earlier in his career. That's just the way football's changing. And eventually, I think it might change back, but I think it's going to be a little while before it changes back. I don't know if it's ever going to go back to, let's say, the Baltimore Ravens of 2000, where they ran the ball and they played defense and the quarterback don't screw it up. I don't know if or if it's going to go back that far again.
I don't. Yeah. I think that Bijan comp right there is a good. It's a good comparison going forward. I've never seen a team grab two generational talents like the Falcons have in a course of 3 years and not use them. I mean, I know they've got stuff going on. I know everybody loves Desmond Ridder around Cincinnati, and rightfully so. He's a great player for the Bearcats, but I know they've got some quarterback issues there. But man, alive, you got Bijan and you got Kyle Pitts, and you're not doing anything.
Just think of those two on the Bengals. That would be awesome. Anyway, AC, dude, you were awesome as always. I appreciate you. I reached out. Actually, both of you guys, you and Mike are both awesome because I didn't have anybody for the show today, and I ended up getting both of you guys. So it's been a really cool show. I've really enjoyed talking to Mike and talking to you. And
I appreciate that. I always enjoy talking to you, buddy.
It's fun. We gotta get you to a game so you can come hang out with me again.
I know. I thought about doing the Bills one, but then I wasn't going to spring for the San Francisco one. That was a last minute thing.
Yeah.
And the Cardinals game was going to dictate if I was even going to consider it.
Right.
If they didn't win that one, I wasn't going to go. But then the San Francisco thing that came literally. I planned it probably like a week before the game, week and a half before the game. So yeah. Anyway, that
did you drive there? Did you drive?
No, I flew.
Okay.
I flew.
What was
The flight out was great. The flight back, it had a nice 3+ hour delay, and I'm like,
oh my goodness, are you serious?
Yeah, on a Monday morning, I'm just like, oh my gosh, just get me home. This is unbelievable.
What is the actual flight time? The flight time's only got like an hour at the most.
It's like an hour. Yeah. I'm like, dude, I could have drove home at this point. Good Lord.
3 hours. Yeah, that would suck. Oh my goodness. Anyway, AC, plug some stuff before I let you go, brother.
I don't know what there is to plug. CincyJungle.com. I do some writing there. The Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast is one of the podcasts on Cincy Jungle that I host with John Sheeran. John and I were on your show. Was it last week?
I think it was last Friday.
Yeah.
It's a Friday.
Friday.
It's
a Friday thing. I love it.
It's Saturday, Sunday.
So I do the show with him. We have a lot of fun. We have some guests. You guys have been on a couple times and talk like draft and other big times. We'll have to have you back on soon too, sir. But I appreciate the hospitality. You always invite me to yammer on here, and I appreciate it, man. You're a good dude.
You're the Godfather, man. Of course, gotta respect. Well, I'm older than you are, but as far as podcasts go, I respect your elders. And think it's sensitive. Anyway, AC, appreciate you, brother.
Good man, dude.
I'll get you on again sometime soon. I'm sure I will.
Good day,
brother.
Appreciate it. Take care.
See you, bud. Bye. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. That was a really cool show for something that just kind of got put together. AC reached back to me and said he could come on, and then Bass said he could come on, and I'm like, sweet, this would be pretty cool. So I enjoy that, and hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. Mike Bass is pretty cool. There's a lot of stuff I would like to ask him, different players he covered back in the 80s. Did he interview Paul Brown? A lot of cool stuff. I'll have to get him back on and pick his brain a little bit more. Anyway, let me get to the Facebook groups. That let me live stream. And as always, I appreciate every single one of them. They are Who Dey Nation, Who Dey Legion, Bearcat Ruckus, Radical Reds, the Ohio State Bucknuts, the Ice Bar. And they can follow me on all my social media platforms, all under Sports with Strawberry Ice on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Twitter handle is at Jeff A. Trenipole. Twitter X is at Jeff A. Trenipole. TikTok is at Iceman90. The rest of them are all under Sports with Strawberry Ice. I'll be pulling the sound off later on tonight, putting on the podcast on Beanpod, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Google, Stitcher Play, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts. Please make sure you rate, like, and review. Leave a 5-star review and a comment. Some more Cincinnati fans can find my podcast. That just helps with the algorithm. YouTubers, you guys are awesome. 2,434. Again, I had like 30 people watch this at one time. I got 9 likes. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up. hit the heart, hit all that stuff. So it helps you out. I appreciate it. It just helps me out there. Shout out to my boy YB Assad. I didn't get to hear it. He was on Kiss 107 today, talking about the new song they got to play us too. He shouted me out, which is cool. We are going to be in lot 1 shooting the music video. So if you guys, please, like me and Dave were talking about yesterday, we're a bunch of old white dudes that we hang out down there. I don't know how much rhythm we got left. So if you guys want to be part of the music video, please come down to lot 1 and be a part of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be down there with Joey Carr from ZTV as well. We'll be doing some cool videos, interviews, stuff like that down there as well. So we got a lot of cool stuff going on at lot 1. So make sure you guys jump on there. Bearcats are playing tonight at 7:30. Pretty sure it's on ESPN Plus. About to jump off here and go watch them. And I love the throwback uniforms. Those are my favorite jerseys. I'm so happy they're back to the Jordans. I'm so happy they're back with Nike. It is awesome. You guys have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you Monday. If not, I'll see you Sunday. Come down and say hi. And other than that, that's your sports, baby. See ya!
I'm from the city where they gotta play up.
Yeah.
I'm from the city where they gotta play up.
I don't.
Coin flippers trying to pay up.
Hey,
I'm from the city where they gotta play up.
they still
I'm from the city
gotta
where they gotta
play
play up.
us,
I'm
man.
from the city where they gotta play up. Coin flippers trying to pay up.
Go. Started out with who they done got me started. Call Katie, tell him make room for the Lamborghini. I trust 27 to lead us through any battle. We had DK out there press. You seen how we did Seattle? Went down 1-3 and then we hop back on that saddle. Everybody want T, but you can't have him cause we got a lethal 9 on the side and he gon' always red dot him. 29 got him on lockdown. This Taylor Britt Island. You know Jamar probably open. That boy 7-11. Who your best cornerback? Cause my receivers gon' shred it. And y'all don't wanna go one-on-one with Lou's playbook. 91 step on that field, them quarterbacks look shook. A couple weeks went by and we done stacked us up some wins. Craig Logan still with us, still the turnover twin. Uzier and man to man, you probably shouldn't throw at him. Orlando Brown came to town, showed us what a bodyguard is. I don't think they want no smoke with us. Forever standing on business, this ain't no joke for us. Money Mackey line it up, that boy forever clutch. Put up whoever you want, it's never slow for us. Ain't nothing changed, 21 still lurking in the cut. 83 reasons why they can't with us. Zach Taylor top dog, it's always win or bust. Hand the ball to Chase Brown, probably won't get touched. Chuck sizzle back deep to receive the punt. Probably gon' run it back, I feel like he the one. Doing my shuffle on him still, I feel like Icky Woods. Whole line protecting Joe like a tiger should. Imagine having Trent Irwin as your 4th string. If BJ Hill hit you, you feel what that force bring. 1, 2, 3, nah, we need 4 rings. This the jungle, you can't come in here and pull strings. Look close, look how DJ read that offense. Send Hubbard and Osai, yeah, we all in. Nick Scott ball hawking overwatching. Dax Hill an interception that look flawless. It's really hard to lose when K. Adams rule for you. If you need a couple yards, Earth gon' get it for you. We got Tanner Hudson now, Sample still too. Yoshi gon' go get that ball just like a dog do. Already knew they had to play us, but this part 2. I'm from the city where they gotta. I'm from the city where they gotta play us. It's time to pay up. I'm from the city where they gotta play us. I'm from the city where they gotta. I'm from the city where they gotta play us. It's time to pay up.